Hi, and welcome to the Soul Elevation Podcast, guiding your ascension to new heights. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and today I'm excited to be talking about how I know that everything is going to be okay for you. And we're in a trying time. I think human life, human existence is generally tricky. It is hard. It's a tricky school if you want to think of it as a school. Sorry, let me just quickly change a setting here. Sorry, I didn't do that before. Um, it's a hard, challenging existence, and there is a lot going on right now. There is a lot of astrological activity. There are a lot of solar flares and geomagnetic activity that has just it's made life challenging. And so if you're feeling challenges right now, please know that part of what you're going through, at least part of it, is it's part of what the collective is going through. It's part of what humanity is going through and the planet herself. But I had a really interesting experience recently that helped to illustrate the fact that even when it seems like things are falling apart, even when it seems that we might be off course or that things aren't lining up with what we feel that with the effort that we feel we're putting out, with the intentions that we feel that we're putting out, we're still being held, we're still being guided. And it may just be that our human perspective is not able to see the whole picture clearly yet, to see how things are working in our favor. So let me share this story with you that happened recently. I hosted a summit called the Reaching Through the Veils Summit at the beginning of April. And I invited 10 guests to come on and to share their experiences of how they connect with the other side, how they communicate with their guides, with their loved ones who have passed away, what that's like for them, and to give tips for listeners on how they can improve that within themselves to strengthen their own connection across the veil. And one of the people that I invited was a very dear friend of mine who lives in the same town that I live. And I knew she would be a great speaker for this topic. It's somebody that I love very much, who I would have been really honored to join me in that project. And this friend and I, we meet every couple of months, every couple of weeks. We'll meet and just have a coffee and catch up and support each other. And I was creating this event and I had her in mind from the very beginning. And every time we would meet, I would intend to tell her about this event and invite her to be a speaker. And the conversation never really allowed the invitation. So even while it wasn't that I was forgetting to ask her, it was always kind of there in my mind. And it just was never appropriate because of the content of what we were talking about. There were some really challenging, very difficult things that we were discussing. And it just didn't seem like, it would have sort of been like, oh, I'm really sorry about everything you're going through. Hey, by the way, I'm hosting this summit and you'd be perfect. It just seemed like it would have been really obtuse for me to suddenly change the subject and try to get her in a headspace to think about if she would want to be a speaker for this. But at one point, eventually, I did say as we were leaving, hey, I am hosting another summit. I would love for you to be a speaker. I'm going to send you info, no pressure. If you want to join, please do. Just be on the lookout for me to send this to you. And then it probably took me a week or two before I actually sent her more information on it. And actually, what I did, instead of like telling her more about it, I think I had thought that I had told her enough about it to get a sense of whether she would want to join or not. But I just text her and I said, "Hey, I'm creating like the speaker assets now, and I like the banner, the promotional assets. I'm doing the website. So if you want to be a part of this, can you please let me know and send me, your photo, your bio, and whatever, and I'll get you added." And I never heard anything more from her. And then I don't even remember, a couple of weeks later, like a considerable amount of time. Like I never heard from her, so I created the assets. I didn't include her in it because I never heard from her. So I was like, well, if she contacts me soon, I can always add her in. But more and more of these assets were getting created and she wasn't in it. And then I think it was a good 2 weeks later, I got a message from her and it was like, "Oh my God, Kara, I never saw your text. I'm just seeing this text about your summit. I'm so sorry. I hope you didn't think that I was ignoring you, or I don't remember ever talking about this. So I'm not really sure what you're even talking about." And she was kind of like just so embarrassed that she had somehow overlooked this text and had left me, as she said, like left you hanging. And so I thought about it and I was like, "Oh, do I go back in and recreate everything to add her in?" I mean, that's a lot of work and I'm just myself. I don't have like a team of people who I can be like, "Hey, can you go back and recreate all this stuff?" It's just me and I have a lot of projects going at any given time. And so it was going to be a considerable amount of work at that point because everything was done. So I would have had to go back and recreate everything. And I said, I really wanted you to be a part of this, but at this point, in order to go and it's a lot of rework to do for one person. So I think like let's just trust the fact that you never saw the message and that you don't remember me ever bringing this up before, and let's just go with that. And I think you would have been a great speaker, but I think at this point, I just don't have the capacity to go and rework everything. So I would think that there's a reason that we don't know yet, that is why, you're not going to be a part of this one. And we were both, it was both of us like no hard feelings at all. I didn't feel slighted at all. And she was completely understanding of not being included at that point. Um, but what was really interesting is when we had the summit, it was on April 2nd, and there was a tornado that came down like 3 miles from my house. So as I am hosting this 3.5 hour summit, I'm already in my basement. I was able to communicate with my kids over text to make sure that they were safe. And the actual tornado itself was toward the end, and it wasn't exactly in my area. I mean, luckily, there was not actually a tornado here in, near my house, but that's pretty close. 3 miles away is pretty close. Well, that tornado went through my friend's neighborhood, which is actually my old neighborhood, which is why it was kind of on my radar anyway, where I was like, "Oh my God, that was really, really close to our old house." And then I was like, "Oh my God, that's where she lives." And so, and she has 3 kids. She is a single parent. And she's not from here originally. She didn't grow up in the Midwest. So tornadoes and what to do in the case of a tornado, it's a really scary situation for anybody, but especially when you feel all this responsibility for not only yourself and your property, but for, your kids who you love so much. Um, it's it's a lot. And then you add to that the fact that you're from, a place where tornadoes are not a thing. And you don't really, you didn't grow up with this threat and know what to do. Like for me, I grew up in the Midwest. Tornadoes come, it's jarring. You're on alert and you follow when you hear the sirens going, you take shelter. But I'm familiar with them. I've been through them a lot. And so, but in that situation, I can completely understand that would be a very overwhelming thing. Well, she didn't even realize that the summit was that night. But I text her when it was over to check and see how everything was at her house, if she was safe and everything. But I also was like, the summit just ended. I think we know now why you weren't a part of it. You know, why it was you didn't get the message, why we felt that for some reason it wasn't the right event for her, because that would have been way too much for her to have responsibility for her three kids, herself, her animals, and also be trying to be a part of this summit, to be a speaker. That would have been completely overwhelming. So, looking at it, as we were planning it, and it felt like it felt like she and I, when the planning was going on, we were just reflecting on this actually last week, because we both felt like we're always really aligned and on the same page, on the same wavelength. And with this particular experience, it felt like we were like this, like, wait, why are we not lining up? Why are we not matching up here? Why are we so misaligned? And the trick was to trust that, when it felt like we were not aligned, even when it felt like there was something off, we were still being held and protected. She, in particular, was really being protected so that she could have the resources, the awareness, the attention that she would need when the time came. And of course, like when I was planning this, this was like January or February. I had no idea what the weather was going to be like. I had no there was no reason for me to even imagine that there would be some sort of storm or anything. And if there was, if I had that kind of foresight, I probably would have picked a different day if I could have. I didn't even really pick that day. It was one of the speakers that I wanted to have. That was the only time that they were available. In like, I wanted it to be in March, and they didn't have any availability in March, so we had to do it in April. So it's just really interesting. We might feel like things are falling apart, or what we're trying to make happen isn't happening. It could have been easy for me to be like, wait a minute, my my friend, this person who would be great is like not even getting the messages about this. Should I even do it? Like, am I off course? Is the universe trying to show me that I'm off course, that I shouldn't even have this event? Um, or it could have made me, doubt the whole thing. But it's really interesting now to look back and be like, yeah, we were being held, we were being protected, even when it felt like things were working against us. That could have been interpreted as something kind of working against us. And so I encourage you to look in your own life, your own experience. And if it feels like you just think that things are going wrong, or that you're not being supported, or something that you're trying to make happen isn't getting traction, isn't happening, um, it very well may be that the way that our ego, that our human consciousness thinks that things are supposed to be, are not actually going to be the highest solution. So stay open to that possibility, because our human brains and our ability to plan and to create, we are very powerful creator beings, but we have all this help on the other side who can help us to orchestrate things in an even more perfect way with information that we don't have access to yet. So it's really, really interesting how these things come to light, and how, information that is blocked from us, such as there's going to be a huge storm and your friend is not going to be able to be engaged in an appropriate way. she needs to have her attention for her family, for her home, her pets. And it's not going to be the right thing for her to be focused on a summit when you're planning that. I didn't have access to that detail at the time. And it would have been really easy for my ego and my human consciousness to be offended or to be in despair or to think that I was being punished for something or whatever I might have told myself based on that. I could have very easily gotten caught up in my ego. And, looking back, like I say, it's clear that there was a divine hand at play. So do think about that in your own circumstance and how you may be being lovingly held, even though right now, from your vantage point, it may feel or seem like the opposite is happening. So I hope that that makes sense. I want to share really quickly as we're wrapping up that my book, Your Authentic Awakening, is now available globally. So if you're not in the US, you can now go on Amazon, you can go on Barnes and Noble, you can go wherever and order that for yourself. If you're in the US, go to karagoodwin.com/book and you can get a signed copy with free shipping. I can only do that in the US. So I apologize for people outside the US. But I hope that you will purchase this book. It is a beautiful book. I'm really, really honored to have my name on it. I think it is its own consciousness. I'm thrilled with how it's come to be. And I do feel that it's a very supportive instrument for those who are on a spiritual awakening journey. So I do hope that you will purchase the book and get a lot from it. And thank you so much for being with me today. I wish you many, many blessings. Have a wonderful week.